The storm didn't announce itself with thunder. It arrived quietly, through headlines, through glances that lingered too long, through the sudden absence of a name where it once belonged. Wang Yibo felt it first in the silence. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that roared louder than applause. The set was buzzing that morning. Staff moving, lights being tested, cameras rolling. But to him, everything felt muffled, as though the world had been wrapped in thick cotton. He sat alone on a metal chair near the edge of the studio, helmet resting at his feet, fingers tapping an unconscious rhythm against his knee. Across the room, someone laughed. For a brief, reckless second, Yibo thought it was him. Zhan. The thought hit so hard it almost knocked the breath from his lungs. He looked up instinctively, eyes scanning faces, already knowing he wouldn't find the one he was searching for. And he didn't. Just strangers, co-workers, people who didn't know how loud silence could be. Once, this place had been different. Once, storms had passed quickly. Now, the storm had come and gone, and what remained was the wreckage. And the quiet. Months earlier, the world had been unbearably loud. Flashbulbs, cheers, questions fired like bullets. Are you close? Is it true? How do you feel about? They had learned to smile through it, learned to stand side by side, shoulders almost touching, close enough to feel each other's warmth but careful enough not to cross invisible lines. Yibo had always been good at control. His expressions were precise, his emotions guarded like a locked room. But Zhan was different. He smiled with his eyes, spoke with softness, let warmth spill out even when it shouldn't. That warmth had been dangerous. They both knew it. The night everything changed. Rain poured from the sky as if the heavens had decided to drown the city. They had escaped a crowded event through a side exit, jackets pulled tight, heads lowered. Inside the car, the rain hammered the roof, creating a world of its own. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Zhan finally broke the silence, voice barely louder than the rain. "Do you ever wonder," he said, staring out the window, "what would happen if we just stopped pretending?" Yibo's jaw tightened. Pretending was survival. Pretending was safety. Yet his answer came without thought. Every day. The car slowed at a red light, neon reflections dancing across the wet glass. In that moment, time seemed suspended. Two people trapped between what they were allowed to be and what they already were. Zhan turned, eyes searching Yibo's face. There was fear there, and hope, and something dangerously close to trust. But the light turned green. The moment passed. Some storms don't explode. They wait. When the backlash came, it was merciless. Rumors twisted into weapons. Words lost their innocence. Smiles were dissected, gestures put on trial. Every shared glance turned into evidence of something forbidden. Management meetings replaced rehearsals. Scripts changed. Schedules shifted. Distance was no longer a suggestion, it was a command. The first time Yibo was told they wouldn't be appearing together anymore, he nodded. Calm. Professional. Inside, something cracked. Zhan didn't argue either. He smiled politely, thanked everyone, and walked out with his head held high. They didn't speak after that. Not because they didn't want to. Because wanting had become too dangerous. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. Yibo threw himself into everything, racing, dancing, acting, moving so fast he didn't have time to feel. But silence has a way of catching up. Late at night, in hotel rooms that all looked the same, he would scroll past old photos he shouldn't still have. Behind-the-scenes moments. Shared laughter. Accidental touches caught by careless cameras. Memories were quieter than headlines. And sharper. Zhan, meanwhile, learned how to smile alone. He faced interviews with grace, answered questions that never asked what he truly felt. Fans saw strength. They saw resilience. They didn't see the nights he sat by the window, city lights blurred by unshed tears, replaying conversations that ended too soon. The storm had passed, but no one talked about the aftermath. They met again by accident, or fate, depending on who you asked. It was an awards ceremony, one of those glittering nights where everything looks perfect from afar. Yibo arrived late, dressed in black, expression unreadable. Applause washed over him as he walked to his seat, and then he saw him. Zhan sat 3 rows ahead, posture straight, hands folded neatly in his lap. He looked thinner, calmer, Older, somehow. For a moment, the world tilted. Yibo's chest tightened as if someone had reached inside and closed their fist around his heart. He hadn't realized how much he missed him until that second. Zhan didn't turn around. Not once. The ceremony unfolded in slow motion. Names announced. Awards handed out. Cameras panned across smiling faces. When Zhan's name was called, the applause was thunderous. Yibo clapped too. Harder than anyone. Zhan walked onto the stage, bowed, and began his speech. It was composed, thoughtful, grateful. Then his voice softened. There are times, he said, eyes shining under the lights, when silence teaches us more than noise ever could. When storms pass, we're left to face who we are and what we choose to protect. Yibo stopped breathing. For just a heartbeat, Zhan's gaze lifted, past the cameras, past the crowd, and met his. The contact lasted less than a second. It felt like a lifetime. They didn't speak that night, but something had shifted. A week later, Yibo found a message on his phone. An unsaved number. One simple line. Are you doing okay? Yibo stared at the screen for a long time before replying. I am now. The conversation didn't rush. It didn't need to. Words were chosen carefully, like stepping through broken glass. They talked about work, about exhaustion, about the strange feeling of being surrounded by people and still feeling alone. They didn't talk about the storm. Not yet. Eventually, messages turned into calls. Calls into long silences where neither felt the need to hang up. Just breathing. Existing. Healing isn't loud. Sometimes, it's just being heard. They met privately weeks later, far from cameras and crowds. A quiet tea house tucked away in a narrow street, the kind of place where time moves slower. The owner didn't recognize them, or pretended not to. Yibo arrived first. When Zhan walked in, the bell above the door chimed softly, and Yibo stood without thinking. For a second, they just looked at each other. No scripts, no roles, no expectations. Zhan smiled first. You look tired. Yibo huffed a small laugh. So do you. They sat. Tea steamed between them, curling into the air like unspoken words. I thought, Zhan said slowly, fingers wrapped around his cup, that silence would make things easier. Yibo shook his head. It only made it louder. Zhan's eyes softened. I was scared, he admitted. Not of a storm, but of what we'd lose after. Yibo met his gaze. We lost a lot, but not everything, Zhan said. That was when Yibo understood. The storm had taken their closeness, their ease, their shared spotlight, but it hadn't taken the truth. They didn't make promises. They didn't need to. Some bonds don't require constant presence. Some connections survive distance, silence, and time. They learn new ways to exist, parallel lines instead of intersecting paths. Support without visibility, care without possession. The storm didn't end when the noise stopped. That was the lie everyone believed. For Wang Yibo, the real damage began after. Morning came with routines he knew too well. Alarm, silence, cold air, black coffee untouched on the table. The city outside his window was alive, but his apartment felt frozen in time. No laughter, no footsteps, no familiar voice teasing him for waking up too early. Silence had weight. He pulled on his jacket and left before his thoughts could catch up. The underground parking lot echoed as his footsteps hit concrete. He liked that sound. It reminded him he still existed. On set, everything moved fast. Too fast. 5 minutes to rehearsal. Camera ready. Positions. Yibo nodded to everyone, professional as ever. His body knew what to do even when his mind drifted elsewhere. He danced with precision, every movement sharp, controlled, flawless. The director clapped. Perfect. But perfection felt hollow. Between takes, Yibo sat alone, scrolling through his phone without really seeing anything. His fingers paused when he reached an old conversation. No new messages for weeks. The name alone felt like a bruise. Zhan. He locked the screen and leaned back, eyes closing for just a second. And suddenly, the noise faded. Before the storm, silence had been rare. Back then, silence meant comfort, shared headphones during late-night drives, sitting side by side without needing words, understanding flowing effortlessly between them. He remembered one night clearly. They were backstage after a long shoot, exhaustion clinging to their bones. The building was quiet, most of the staff already gone. Zhan sat on the floor, back against the wall, legs stretched out, phone abandoned beside him. Yibo had joined him without thinking. "You don't have to stay," Zhan had said lightly. Yibo shrugged. "I don't want to go yet." Minutes passed. Then more. Finally, Zhan spoke, voice softer than usual. "Do you ever feel like the world gets too loud?" Yibo glanced at him. "Only when it matters." Zhan smiled at that. The kind of smile that stayed with you. That was before rumors. Before fear. Before distance became mandatory. Now, silence wasn't chosen. It was enforced. Zhan felt it too, just differently. Where Yibo drowned himself in movement, Zhan stood still. He woke early, practiced scripts alone, replayed scenes in his head over and over until they lost their meaning. Interviews came and went. Smiles were worn like armor. People praised his strength. No one asked what it cost. One afternoon, after another carefully worded interview, Zhan retreated to his dressing room and shut the door. The quiet pressed in instantly. He sank onto the couch, head tipping back, eyes fixed on the ceiling. This is what they wanted, he thought. Distance. Separation. Silence. So why did it feel like punishment? His phone buzzed. A notification from a group chat. Then another. Work-related. Safe. Empty. He unlocked his phone and hovered over one contact, finger trembling just slightly. He didn't press it. Some storms don't break things immediately. They erode them slowly. The first real crack came on a rainy night. Yibo stood at the edge of the city, helmet tucked under his arm, rain soaking through his clothes. He had taken his bike out with no destination in mind, chasing speed like it could outrun memory. It didn't. He stopped beneath an overpass, water dripping steadily around him, breathing hard, not from the ride, but from the ache in his chest. He pulled out his phone, typed a message, deleted it, typed again. "Do you ever feel like the quiet is screaming?" His thumb hovered over send. For a moment, fear wrapped around his heart. Fear of reopening wounds. Fear of being ignored. Fear of making things worse. Then he sent it. The rain kept falling. Minutes passed. Then more. Just as Yibo was about to lock the screen, it buzzed. Every day. That single reply hit harder than any headline ever had. From that moment, silence changed shape. It didn't disappear, but it softened. Messages were short at first. Careful. Almost cautious. But there was honesty in them. Raw and unfiltered. They talked about exhaustion. About pretending. About the strange loneliness of being constantly seen and never truly known. Neither mentioned love. Neither needed to. Late one night, Zhan sent a voice message by mistake, or maybe on purpose. The recording was quiet, just his breathing, a faint hum of traffic in the background. "I forgot how your voice sounds," Yibo typed before he could stop himself. The reply came seconds later. "I never did." The storm had taken their visibility. It hadn't taken their connection. They met again only in memories, for now. Passing each other in crowded events without looking. Sitting in the same rooms, divided by invisible lines. Yet something unseen tied them together. At another event, Yibo stood on stage while applause thundered around him. From the corner of his eye, he saw Zhan in the shadows, watching. No smiles, no gestures, just presence. And for the first time since the storm began, Yibo felt steady. Silence no longer felt like loss. It felt like protection. Because some things are too fragile to survive noise. Some bonds are strongest when whispered. And as the world kept spinning, neither of them realized it yet, but part one of their story was never about the storm. It was about what remained after. If you enjoyed this continuation and want to hear how the story unfolds next, don't forget to like this video, share it with fellow fans, comment your thoughts below, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional, mind-blowing stories just like this.